Recording. Lantern Tower. Origin Site. 4:51 in the afternoon. The founding document is in front of me. I want to describe the room before I read it because the room is evidence, and I've learned in this investigation to record the container before the contents. I've applied that discipline to every object in 2 years of investigation, and I'm going to apply it here. The document has been in this frame for longer than I've been alive. It can wait another 2 minutes while I document where it lives. The Lantern Tower is a single circular space approximately 4 meters across. Stone walls, 8 narrow windows set at compass points, north, northeast, east, and so on around the full compass. Each window approximately 30 centimeters wide and 60 tall. The glass in them old enough that the view through each pane has a slight distortion, the horizon bending fractionally at the edges. The lantern housing above is open to the late afternoon sky through glass panels that filter the light to something gray and even, the kind of flat coastal light that makes everything look slightly overexposed. The floor is stone, continuous with the tower walls, the same material throughout, cold underfoot. The air in the tower is still and carries the smell of the building, stone, age, and something faintly mineral that I associate now with archive locations. A quality I first noticed at 47 Marginal Road and have encountered in every node since. There is no furniture in the tower except one item at the center of the room, a standing document frame, brass, taller than the frames mounted to walls at other nodes. Floor standing. Approximately 1.20 meters in height, 1 meter wide, mounted on a base plate that is bolted to the stone floor with 4 bolts. The kind of frame designed to hold something meant to be read while standing. The brass is not tarnished. It has the quality of metal that is regularly cleaned or metal that does not tarnish. I don't know which. I'm not going to speculate. The document in the frame is a single page. The page is not paper. I don't know what the material is. It is thicker than paper, slightly translucent at the edges when I hold it at an angle to the light from the windows, the color of old linen in the center graduating to near white at the margins. It has the quality of a material that has been preserved not by storage conditions, but by its own properties. The building is not climate controlled. The windows let in coastal air, and the document is unchanged. It is not degraded. The text on it is clear, the ink dark, the lines straight. Whoever wrote this used a fine instrument and steady hands, or whatever produced this text was not a human hand. Hannah is standing beside me. We read it together without speaking first. That felt correct. The room felt like a place where you read before you speak. I'm going to read it aloud now. The complete text. I want it on this recording in full. This network records what would otherwise be forgotten. It was not designed. It grew from the first person who noticed something that records could not account for, and wrote it down rather than dismissing it, and left the record where another person might find it. The second person found it. The second person added to it. The third person found both records and understood that something was accumulating. It has been accumulating since then. The network has no author. The nodes are not constructed. They are locations where the accumulation became dense enough to produce structure, where enough records gathered in one place that the place began to behave like a record itself. The investigators are not chosen. They arrive because they noticed. Every record in this network was made by someone who could have dismissed what they found and did not. Every node exists because someone returned. The network records what would otherwise be forgotten. It does not record it for any purpose. It records it because the alternative is loss. I stopped reading there and stood in the tower for a moment. The investigators are not chosen. They arrive because they noticed. I've been trying to understand my involvement in this investigation for 2 years. The question of why I found the archive, why I was the one who kept returning to 47 Marginal Road, why the system registered me and tracked me and moved me through its stages. I've turned that question over in every recording I've made. I assumed there was a selection mechanism, a criterion I met that others didn't. Something about me specifically that made me eligible. There is no selection mechanism. There is no criterion. I found 47 Marginal Road because I found it, and I went back because I couldn't explain what I'd seen, and I kept going back because each visit produced more that I couldn't explain. That's the full account. I am in this investigation because I noticed something and didn't dismiss it. Anyone who noticed and didn't dismiss would be here instead. That should make the investigation feel smaller. It makes it feel larger. Hannah had moved slightly while I was reading. She was at the edge of the brass frame, looking at the lower portion of the document. I crossed to where she was standing. Below the founding text, separated by a space, the page continues. The material in the lower portion is different. The same page, but the lower half has a quality the upper section doesn't. The ink is newer, or the substrate is newer, or both. The transition is visible at approximately the midpoint of the page. Above it, the founding text in a hand and ink consistent with great age. Below it, the same format, but with a quality that suggests the material is still being added to. Not finished, ongoing. The second section is a list, names, dates, locations, entries in the same format as investigator cards, but running continuously down the page without field labels, each entry a single line of text. The list begins near the top of the second section. The earliest entry at the top, a name I don't recognize, dates in the 1780s, a location on the eastern coast. I read several entries moving downward, names I don't know, dates spanning the 1800s, locations that are sometimes recognizable and sometimes not. Each entry is brief. Each one is a person who arrived because they noticed. I move down the list. The entries become more frequent as the dates approach the present. More investigators active in recent decades than in earlier ones, or more records surviving, or both. I read through the 20th century in the space of a few centimeters. Names and dates and locations, each one a complete investigation compressed to a single line. A. Keller, 1987. L. Carter, 1972 to 1974. Names I recognize from catalog cards. Names I recognize from the threshold chamber. Names I recognize from the second node's record and from the Rook record room cards and from the closed files at 47 Marginal Road. The list runs to approximately 2/3 of the way down the page. The most recent entry before the blank space are names, both of them. Today's date, origin index. I looked at that line for a moment. The investigation has been running for 2 years, and the system has reduced it to a single line on a page that has been accumulating entries since the 1780s. I don't know if that is diminishing or the opposite of diminishing. I think it is the opposite. Below our entry, the page is blank for perhaps 10 centimeters. Then, at the bottom of the page, separated from the list by that blank space, a single line of text that is not part of the founding section and is not part of the list. It stands alone, spaced away from everything above it. The ink has the same quality as the real-time updates I've seen on archive documents before, present in a way that suggests it arrived recently or is still arriving. Hannah sees it at the same moment I do. She says, "Read it." The line reads, "The next question is ready." I looked at that for a moment. The next question. Not the answer to the question we've been investigating, not an explanation of the network or its purpose or its history. A new question. The system has processed our arrival and our investigation and the closure of our records, and it has produced not a conclusion, but a question. That is entirely consistent with every archive document I have ever read. The system does not provide conclusions. It provides the next thing to investigate. Below that line, on what I was certain was blank page a moment ago, text is forming, not appearing the way archive documents appear, not present and then present differently, the archive's usual mode of arrival, forming. Letter by letter, the ink coming into being in sequence, the words building from left to right, a rate slow enough that I can follow individual letters and fast enough that by the time I register what I'm watching, the first word is already complete. I have never seen this before. Documents in this investigation arrive, or they don't. They don't form. This one is forming in front of me, and I am recording it, and I am not going to stop recording until I have read every word aloud. Hannah has her hand on my arm, not pulling me back, steadying. I am aware of her presence the way I have been aware of it throughout this investigation, which is to say completely, and I am not going to record more than that. The words are still coming. I am watching the line form and reading it as it arrives, and what it says is, the network has recorded 2 investigators reaching the origin. The record is closed. The question that remains is not about the network, a space. The forming stops for approximately 3 seconds. Then the final words arrive. The question is why you can hear it. I'm looking at those words. Why you can hear it. Not why the network exists, not who built the nodes, not what the archive is for. Those questions led us here, and the founding document answered them. The network grew, it has no author, it records what would be lost. Those answers are complete. The system has closed that question. The new question is about us, about the investigators specifically. Not what the archive is, why we can perceive it, why the signal reaches us when it doesn't reach others, why I walked into 47 Marginal Road and kept going back when no one else in 2 years ever walked in behind me, why Hannah found the origin site coordinate in 1987 and knew enough to recognize it and not enough to go in alone, why the system requires 2, not because a single investigator is insufficient, but because whatever quality allows investigators to perceive the archive is somehow confirmed or amplified by pairing. The question is why we can hear it. I don't have an answer, I'm recording the question. Hannah's hand is still on my arm, and somewhere below us, through the stone floor and the tower walls and the cliff face and the water at the base of the headland, coming up through the rock from a direction I cannot precisely identify except that it is east and it is distant. The 11-second pulse. Single beat. Not the rook pulse. I know that one in the bones of my hands after 2 days aboard Morwenna. This is different in character, the same interval but a different quality, a different weight in the stone, a different node, already running. I want to record one more thing before I stop. The climb to the tower. I didn't document it during E39 because Hannah opened the door and we were moving and the recording cut. I want it on this tape because the tower stair is part of the building, and the building is evidence. The stair is stone, narrow, a tight spiral ascending through the tower core. 12 steps to a small landing, then another 12 to the tower room. The steps are worn at the center, not from our feet, from the feet of however many investigators climbed them across, however many decades this building has been accumulating records. The wear is deep enough that the stone has taken on a different surface texture at the tread center, smooth where the edges are rough. People have been climbing this stair for a long time. There is no railing. The outer wall is close enough to touch with an extended arm, the inner core of the spiral close enough to touch with the other. I climbed with both hands on the walls because the stairs are steep and the light from above was the only light, and I didn't want to rush. Hannah was ahead of me. She climbed without touching the walls. She has been in buildings like this before, and she moves in them with a confidence that I have stopped questioning and started simply noting as a fact about her. At the landing between the 2 flights, there is a window. The same narrow compass point style as the tower room windows facing west. I stopped at it for a moment. The late afternoon light was coming in low and orange at the horizon, the estuary visible below the headland, the water flat and gray-brown in the estuary and darker blue-gray beyond the bar where it opens to the sea. The building faces east. This window faces west. The founding document's frame is oriented to be read facing east, toward the sea, toward the water, toward the direction the signal came from through the floor. I don't know if that orientation is intentional, I'm noting it. The tower room, when I reached it, was already lit from the lantern housing above and from the 8 compass windows, and Hannah was standing at the brass frame reading, and I crossed the room to stand beside her. And that is where this recording begins. That is where the investigation ends. I am going to stop recording now. Not because the investigation is over. The new pulse through the floor says clearly that it is not over, that the next question is already waiting, that the system has generated a new thread the moment it closed this one. I'm going to stop recording because I am standing in a tower on a headland with Hannah and the founding document and a question I can't answer yet, and those are all the facts I have, and I have recorded all of them. The next recording will begin when I have something new to document. Hannah lifts her hand from my arm. She is looking east through the nearest window, the sea just visible at the horizon beyond the estuary mouth, the light going. She says nothing. Then she turns her head slightly, the way she does when she's listening for something below the threshold of speech. The pulse comes up through the floor again. Single beat. 11 seconds. A different node. Already running.